Have you ever bought a cheap used motorcycle only to get hit with a massive valve, service, an expensive coolant flush, and dealership fees that cost more than the bike? That is the used bike trap, and today we are stepping right around it. We are counting down the 20 motorcycles that cost almost nothing to keep on the road. We're talking hydraulic valve lifters, sealed shaft drives, screw and nut valve trains, and bulletproof air cooling. The exact engineering that keeps these bikes out of the shop and in your garage. And number one, it can run for years on little more than oil and good intentions. Let us begin. Kicking off at number 20, Yamaha SR400, 2015 to 2018. We're starting this list with a bike that refuses to even have an electric starter because apparently Yamaha decided the fewer parts that exist, the fewer parts that can break. 399 cubic centimeters air-cooled single. The kickstart lever and decompression lever mounted on the left bar are the part pointer. There is no electric starter motor, no starter relay, and no massive high cranking amp battery anywhere on this motorcycle. Starter motors and their relays are some of the most common, most annoying electrical failures on any bike. And Yamaha just deleted the entire system. Removing the starter also let Yamaha run a tiny, cheap battery because it only has to power the lights and the fuel injection, not crank an engine over. And yes, it is fuel injected, so despite the vintage kickstart theater, it fires on the first kick even in freezing weather. Add in a dry sump oiling system and dead simple screw and nut valve adjustments, and you get one of the cheapest 400 cubic centimeters bikes to maintain on the planet. $75 a year in upkeep. $4,000 to $5,500 used. For the classic purist who wants the physical satisfaction of kicking over a big single without the carburetor headaches that usually come with it, the SR400 delivers pure mechanical theater with none of the drama. Who it's for? The rider who thinks of pressing a button is cheating. And the irony here is delicious. The least modern bike on this list is arguably one of the smartest financially, because every part Yamaha deleted was a part that could eventually fail and drain your wallet. The SR400 proves that removing parts is sometimes the smartest engineering decision available. The machine coming up takes the opposite approach to saving money. It keeps all its parts, but makes sure the most annoying one to change is the one you can spin off by hand in 10 seconds. Rolling into number 19, Suzuki Boulevard C50, the Volusia 800, 2001 to present. This is the cruiser equivalent of a comfortable recliner that also happens to almost never ask you for money. 805 cubic centimeters, liquid-cooled 45-degree V-twin. The automotive-style spin-on oil filter bolted right at the front of the crankcase is the part pointer. No removing exhaust pipes, no removing skid plates, no fishing around for a hidden paper cartridge. You reach under, spin it off by hand in 10 seconds, and you're done. Power reaches the rear wheel through a sealed shaft drive, so there is no chain to clean, lube, or replace every 15,000 miles. The liquid-cooled V-twin uses easily adjusted screw and nut valve tappets instead of shims, so even the valve checks are a driveway job. It is a big, heavy, plush highway cruiser that asks for almost nothing in return. $110 a year. $3,500 to $5,500 used. For the classic bagger fan who wants shaft drive reliability wrapped in genuine highway comfort, the C50 is the answer. Who it's for? The rider who wants a giant cruiser without the giant repair bills. Owners of these big boulevards tend to describe the ownership experience the same way. Boring, in the sense that nothing ever goes wrong long enough to become a story worth telling. The Boulevard C50 makes servicing so easy it barely qualifies as maintenance. The machine coming up takes that idea one step further. It seals the entire drive chain inside a metal shell, so no maintenance can reach it in the first place. Cruising up to number 18, Honda Super Cub C125, 2019 to present. This is, statistically, the best-selling motor vehicle of any kind in human history, and it earned that title by refusing to cost anyone anything. 125 cubic centimeters air-cooled fuel-injected single. At roughly 9 horsepower, the drive chain experiences almost zero violent structural stress. Keep it clean and lubed, and it will easily outlast the chain on any high-performance machine. There is also no manual clutch lever to burn out or adjust, because the Super Cub uses an automatic centrifugal clutch. The engine sips exactly 1 quart of oil and returns mileage north of 100 miles per gallon, meaning your fuel bill is basically a rounding error too. $40 a year in upkeep, $3,000 to $4,000 used. For the urban commuter who wants the lowest cost per mile of any internal combustion vehicle on Earth, this is it, full stop. Who it's for? The rider who wants to forget their bike exists between rides. In the best way, Honda has built well over 100 million of these worldwide, in nearly every configuration imaginable, which means parts availability and mechanic familiarity are basically guaranteed for the rest of your life. Sealing a chain in metal armor is genius. What's coming next takes that same keep it simple philosophy and bolts it to a full-blown premium European twin. Powering into number 17, BMW R nineT 2014 to 2023. German engineering has a reputation for expensive dealership visits. The R nineT is BMW's glorious middle finger to that reputation. 1,170 cubic centimeters, air and oil-cooled boxer twin. The radial valve arrangement inside the exposed boxer cylinder heads is the part pointer. BMW deliberately reached back into their older proven cam head architecture instead of the complex liquid-cooled engine in their modern GS bikes. Because the cylinders stick straight out into the wind, you have instant access to the valve covers without removing a single fairing panel. Even though checking the high-spec double overhead cam valve train requires measuring shims rather than spinning a simple nut, it's still arguably the most accessible 100-plus horsepower engine to service on the planet. The double overhead cam valve train still uses a clever screw and nut adjustment, making this arguably the easiest 100-plus horsepower engine to service on the planet. Add BMW's legendary shaft drive paralever system and you get a premium European motorcycle you can genuinely wrench on yourself. $140 a year. Parts run slightly more premium. $7,500 to $11,000 used. For the premium buyer who wants high-end European build quality without the $150 an hour labor rate, the R nineT is the loophole. Who it's for? The rider who wants a boxer engine and a bank account that stays intact. It's the rare case of a manufacturer looking backward on purpose, choosing a simpler, older engine specifically because simpler and older meant cheaper to live with, not because they couldn't build something more complicated. The R nineT proves that BMW can build something affordable to maintain when they choose to. The machine coming up proves Honda has been doing it quietly for decades. A shaft drive cruiser with screw and nut valves that just runs year after year without asking for anything complicated in return. Subscribe right now if you are already mentally cross-referencing this list against your own garage. We are about to crack the top 15, and it only gets cheaper from here. Gliding into number 16, Honda Shadow Aero 750 2004 to present. This is the cruiser Honda built when they decided reliability should be boring in the best possible way. 745 cubic centimeters liquid-cooled 52-degree V-twin. The enclosed shaft drive hidden inside the left swing arm tube is the part pointer, practically invisible, practically maintenance-free, needing nothing more than a quick gear oil drain every 24,000 miles. Despite being liquid-cooled, Honda kept the easy screw and nut valve adjusters, so nobody is pulling camshafts to check clearances. The long-stroke, low-revving V-twin just glides down the highway without stress. Parts are cheap, insurance is practically free for this displacement class, and the engine routinely blows past 100,000 miles on nothing but oil changes. $100 a year, $3,000 to $5,500 used. For the traditional cruiser rider who wants the look of a heavy V-twin without the heavy repair bills, the Shadow Aero delivers. Who it's for? The rider who wants boring, reliable to actually mean something. Honda's whole Shadow lineup shares this DNA, and the used market is flooded with high-mileage examples that still ride like new, which keeps prices low and parts even lower. The Shadow Aero keeps costs low by keeping the drivetrain sealed and the valve train simple. Coming up is a machine that takes the same approach into the dirt, air-cooled, no radiator to crush, and so under stress that owners stack 30,000 trail miles on it without opening the engine once. Climbing to number 15, Yamaha XT250 2008 to present. This is the fuel-injected mountain goat that simply refuses to quit on the trail or your wallet. 249 cubic centimeters, air-cooled single. The forged aluminum piston inside the lightweight cylinder is the part pointer, drastically cutting reciprocating mass so the engine suffers less fatigue over its lifetime. Unlike high-strung 250 motocross bikes that measure engine life in hours, the XT250 is a low-compression workhorse built to survive years, not seasons. It holds a tiny 1.3 quarts of oil, and the two-valve head uses a screw and nut adjustment you can finish in 5 minutes. Because it is air-cooled, you can drop this thing on rocks all day without worrying about crushing a radiator or snapping a plastic water pump housing. $75 a year, $3,500 to $5,000 used. For the lightweight adventure rider who wants fuel-injected altitude compensation with zero liquid cooling liabilities, the XT250 is the pick. Who it's for? The rider who wants trail toughness without trailside radiator repairs. Because the engine is so under stress, it isn't uncommon to find these with well over 30,000 trail miles, and nothing more invasive than oil changes and air filter cleanings in their entire service history. The XT250 eliminates the radiator problem entirely by never having one. The machine coming up eliminates a different problem entirely. Instead of two carburetors that need synchronizing, it runs both cylinders off a single one, which means that there is nothing to sync and one less thing to ever get wrong. Easing into number 14, Honda CMX 250C Rebel, 1985 to 2016. For 30 years, this was the automatic answer to what should my first bike be, and it earned that spot by never asking for anything back. 234 cubic centimeters air-cooled parallel twin. The single 26mm 𝐏𝐑 carburetor feeding both cylinders through a Y-shaped intake is the part pointer. Multi-cylinder carbureted bikes usually need careful vacuum gauge synchronization between throttle bodies. The Rebel skips that entirely. There is nothing to sync. You clean one carb and the whole engine runs perfectly. The air-cooled parallel twin is famous for enduring outright abuse, surviving owners who forget oil changes entirely for embarrassingly long stretches. The screw and nut valves are dead simple to reach, and a full set of budget tires costs under $110. $70 a year, $1,500 to $2,800 used. For the absolute beginner who wants a lightweight cruiser that holds its resale value when they're ready to upgrade, the Rebel 250 is the classic move. Who it's for? The rider buying their very first bike and their very last regret. Motorcycle safety courses across the country practically standardized on this bike for a reason. It forgives mistakes mechanically the same way it forgives them for new riders. The Rebel 250 solved the carburetor problem by having fewer of them. The machine coming up solved it more aggressively. It hid real fuel injection behind retro carburetor styling, so it looks like the problem exists and behaves like it never did. Rolling toward number 13, Suzuki TU250X, 2009 to 2019. This is the motorcycle that taught half of America how to ride, and it survives that job entirely on abuse. 249 cubic centimeters air-cooled fuel-injected single, the electronic fuel injection. Throttle body, tucked behind the side cover to preserve the vintage carburetor look, is the part pointer. Small displacement classic bikes usually get plagued by gummed-up carburetors after sitting all winter. Suzuki solved that with real EFI hiding under a retro disguise, so it cold starts instantly and self-adjusts for altitude with zero jetting drama. The 249 cubic centimeters engine needs a minuscule 1.6 quarts of oil, and because the bike is light with gentle linear power, the brake pads and chain seem to last forever. It uses simple screw and nut valve adjustments and a single spark plug. $65 a year, $2,800 to $4,000 used. For the city commuter who wants cafe racer looks with modern fuel-injected dependability underneath, the TU250X delivers both. Who it's for? The rider who wants vintage style with zero vintage carburetor anxiety. This is the rare small displacement bike that looks like a maintenance project and behaves like a modern appliance, which is exactly why so many owners keep them for a decade or more. The TU250X dresses like a maintenance problem and performs like a modern appliance. The machine coming up has the opposite reputation. It looks like an expensive custom bagger, and it turns out the maintenance schedule is closer to a lawn tractor than a custom build. Charging into number 12, Honda VTX 1300, 2003 to 2009. It looks like an expensive custom bagger that some guy dropped $15,000 building. Underneath the chrome, it actually has the maintenance schedule of a lawn tractor. 1,312 cubic centimeters liquid-cooled 52-degree V-twin. The single-pin crankshaft buried in the massive lower engine block is the part pointer, the source of that classic galloping V-twin rumble. Honda prioritized torque over horsepower here, so the engine spins at low RPM, and the bearings and piston rings barely notice the miles piling up. Unlike big liquid-cooled cruisers that hide complex shim underbucket valves, the VTX 1300 kept a fully serviceable screw and nut valve train. No pulling camshafts, just pop the covers, slide in a feeler gauge, and tighten the lock nut. The sealed shaft drive is quieter and cleaner to service than the engine oil itself. $110 a year, $3,500 to $5,500 used. For the heavyweight cruiser rider who wants massive displacement and bulletproof Japanese engineering, the VTX 1300 checks both boxes. Who it's for? The rider who wants a big bike without a big service invoice. The VTX line gets overlooked by collectors chasing Harleys and Indians, which is exactly why clean examples still trade for a fraction of what the chrome and displacement would suggest. The VTX 1300 proves that massive displacement and low maintenance bills are not mutually exclusive. Coming up is a machine that proves the same thing at a much more accessible price point. A brand new warranty-backed single with a $6 oil filter and a center stand already bolted to the frame. Stepping up to number 11, Royal Enfield Meteor 350 2021 to present. Classic British styling, powered by a brand new engine built specifically for brutal, high-mileage global commuting and priced like Royal Enfield actually wants you to afford it. 349 cubic centimeters, air and oil-cooled single, the J-Series engine. The standard equipment center stand bolted to the frame is the part pointer. Maintaining a chain is a nightmare without a rear paddock stand, so Royal Enfield just includes one. Rock the bike back, lift the rear wheel, lube the chain in 30 seconds. Done. The brand new single overhead cam engine runs just 2 valves, with wide open access covers that make the screw and nut rocker arm adjustment a genuine piece of cake. Because these engines are built to survive the brutal daily commuting conditions of India, the parts are massively overbuilt, and imported replacements land in the US shockingly cheap. An OEM oil filter runs about $6, $75 a year. $3,000 to $4,200 used. For the relaxed cruiser fan who wants a brand new, vintage-looking bike with an active warranty for the price of a used Honda, the Meteor 350 is a genuine steal. Who it's for? The rider who wants new bike peace of mind at used bike prices. Royal Enfield's global service network has grown fast in the US specifically because the brand knows low-cost ownership is the entire pitch, and they're backing it with dealer support to match. A built-in center stand is such an obvious idea, it's almost insulting. Just ahead, we're cracking the top 10 with a dual sport tank that erased 5 separate mechanical failure points in one move. Hit that like button, because we are officially into the top 10, and every single bike from here on is cheaper to own than the last. Thundering into the top 10 at number 10, Suzuki DR 650S 1996 to present. In a world obsessed with the electronic traction control and liquid cooling, The DR 650S keeps selling out dealerships using technology from 1996, and buyers keep lining up anyway. 644 cubic centimeters, air and oil-cooled single. The Suzuki Advanced Cooling System, an external oil cooler radiator bolted to the right side of the frame, is the part pointer. By using air and oil cooling instead of a water jacket, Suzuki erased the water pump, the thermostat, the coolant hoses, the cooling fan, and the coolant reservoir. That is 5 major failure points gone. The Mikuni carburetor can be rebuilt on a tailgate in 30 minutes. Valve checks come every 7,500 miles, but with a 4-valve head using external screw and nut adjusters and 0 plastic fairings in the way, the job flies by. Standard 21-inch front and 17-inch rear wheels mean endless access to cheap, durable, dual sport rubber. $90 a year, $3,500 to $5,500 used. For the hardcore dual sport rider who wants an apocalypse-proof thumper that can cross continents without seeing a dealership, this is the machine. Who it's for? The rider planning a trip further than their dealer's warranty coverage. The DR 650S has barely changed since its debut, and the reason nobody complains about that is simple. There was never anything broken that needed fixing in the first place. The DR 650S erased 5 failure points by choosing not to have them. The machine coming up took a different approach to minimizing costs. It kept everything, but made all of it so small that nothing is ever under enough stress to wear out quickly. Surging into number 9, Honda Grom, the MSX 125, 2014 to present. The undisputed king of parking lot hooliganism is also, somehow, the cheapest street-legal motorcycle to own in America, which feels like it shouldn't be allowed. 124 cubic centimeters air-cooled single. The centrifugal oil spinner under the right crankcase cover is the part pointer. Pre-2022, Groms don't even use a replaceable paper oil filter. A spinning metal cup flings heavy dirt particles to its outer wall, and you just wipe the sludge out with a rag every 7,500 miles. The Grom needs exactly 1 quart of 10 W30 oil, full stop. At 227 pounds and roughly 10 horsepower, the chain and sprockets experience almost 0 violent stress, so they last way longer than they would on a 600cc sport bike. A full pair of premium 12-inch tires cost under $100 for both of them. $50 a year. $2,500 to $3,500 used. For the urban commuter or stunt rider who wants maximum fun for minimum financial risk, the Grom is basically a cheat code. Who it's for? The rider who wants to grin ear to ear without touching their savings. The aftermarket for this thing is enormous, but that's optional spending, not required spending, which is a distinction that matters a lot when you're comparing true cost of ownership. The Grom keeps costs low by keeping everything tiny and unstressed. The machine coming up keeps costs low in a completely different way, by being built so over-spec for its job that nothing it encounters in normal use comes anywhere near its limits, including the oil filter, which you wash with brake cleaner and reinstall. Pressing on at number 8, Yamaha TW200, 1987 to present. This is the two-wheeled equivalent of a tractor, engineered to survive absolutely anything you throw at it, including your own neglect. 196 cubic centimeters air-cooled single. The massive rear ATV style balloon tire is the part pointer, absorbing brutal impacts so the suspension doesn't have to, which means fewer blown fork seals over the bike's lifetime. This engine architecture dates back to the late 1980s, and Yamaha has changed almost nothing since. Because why fix what refuses to break? It holds an absurdly low 1.1 quarts of oil, and it uses a reusable wire mesh oil filter. You literally wash it with brake cleaner and pop it back in, killing the recurring $10 cost of paper filters forever. The 2-valve head uses massive, easy screw and nut adjusters, and the cheap non-O-ring chain runs under $30 to replace. $60 a year, $3,000 to $4,500 used. For the off-road explorer who wants a low-seat trail weapon fixable with a hammer and a pair of pliers, the TW200 delivers. Who it's for? the rider who wants a bike that laughs at rocks, mud, and neglect equally. Farmers, hunters, and trail riders have kept this exact platform alive for decades precisely because it survives conditions that would put a modern, liquid-cooled machine in the shop permanently. The TW200 survives everything because it was built to handle far more than it ever faces. The machine coming up survives because it was built to need almost nothing. A 4-cylinder with hydraulic valve lifters that adjust themselves automatically, meaning the only service it ever asks for is an oil change. Kicking into number 7, Honda CB 750 Nighthawk, 1991 to 2003. This is the motorcycle that professional mechanics actively despise, not because it's badly built, but because it never gives them a single billable hour ever for as long as you own it. 747 cubic centimeters, air-cooled, inline-4. The hydraulic tappets hidden under the massive finned cylinder head cover are the part pointer. Most 4-cylinder bikes need tedious valve checks every 15,000 miles. And with 16 valves to measure and shim, that can run you $600 at a dealership. The Nighthawk 750 bypasses that entirely with hydraulic tappets, inside and air-cooled inline-4, a genuine engineering unicorn. It also runs a self-adjusting alternator chain and an automatic cam chain tensioner. There is literally nothing inside this engine for you to adjust. It's built to be ridden across the country on nothing but tire checks and oil changes. $130 a year, $2,500 to $4,000 used. For the vintage standard lover who wants pure 1990s aesthetic without ever touching a feeler gauge. And the Nighthawk is the move. Who it's for? The rider who wants 4 cylinders of character with 0 cylinders of maintenance anxiety. Clean examples are getting harder to find precisely because owners realize what they have and simply refuse to sell, which tells you everything about how this bike treats the people who own it. The Nighthawk 750 used hydraulic lifters on a 4-cylinder to make valve maintenance disappear entirely. The machine coming up did the exact same thing on a V-twin cruiser in 1985, and somehow nobody talks about it. Subscribe if you haven't already, because we are about to hit the top 5, and number 1 is going to make you rethink everything you thought you knew about cheap motorcycles. Bearing down at number 6, Kawasaki Vulcan 750, the VN 750, 1985 to 2006. Japan's ultimate answer to the zero-maintenance American cruiser. And honestly, Japan won this one so decisively, it almost feels unfair to the competition. 749 cubic centimeters, liquid-cooled 55-degree V-twin. The hydraulic valve lash adjusters, buried deep inside the DOHC heads, are the part pointer, automatically taking up valve train slack using nothing but oil pressure. Most liquid-cooled metric V Twin S from this era need manual valve adjustments that are a nightmare because the radiator blocks your access. Kawasaki just installed hydraulic lifters and made the entire problem disappear. Keep clean oil in the crankcase and the valves perpetually self-adjust, no dealer visit required. Add an automatic cam chain tensioner, solid-state electronic ignition, and a sealed shaft drive, and the Vulcan 750 becomes a machine that only ever asks for fresh fluids and brake pads. $110 a year, $1,800 to $3,000 used. For the classic cruiser enthusiast who wants Japanese reliability with genuinely zero-maintenance valve technology, the Vulcan 750 is criminally underrated. Who it's for? The rider who wants set it and forget it in cruiser form. 20-plus years on, it still doesn't get the credit it deserves, mostly because it never gave owners a dramatic story to tell about a breakdown. The Vulcan 750 automated the valve maintenance problem. The machine coming up solved a different problem. It cut the cylinder count in half, which means half the spark plugs, half the carburetor cleaning, half the pistons, and a Kevlar belt drive that clears 40,000 miles without a single drop of chain lube. Roaring into the top. 5 at number 5, Suzuki Boulevard C50, the Savage 650, 1986 to 2019. If simplicity really is the ultimate sophistication, then this might be the single most sophisticated motorcycle ever built, despite looking like the exact opposite. 652 cubic centimeters air-cooled single, The carbon fiber reinforced drive belt is the part pointer, running completely dry, needing zero lubrication and ignoring abrasive road dirt entirely. This engine is essentially half of a Harley-Davidson V-twin, a massive single cylinder, meaning you only ever buy one spark plug, clean one carburetor, and worry about one piston. Cutting the cylinder count in half cuts your mechanical complexity in half too. The Kevlar belt easily clears 40,000 miles, completely removing drivetrain lash and chain-snapping paranoia from your life. Oil changes need a mere 2.5 quarts of standard 10W40. The screw and nut valve adjustments hide behind two small inspection caps on the rocker box, so you can dial in clearances without pulling the main cylinder head cover. $85 a year, $2,000 to $3,500 used. For the minimalist rider who wants a lightweight, punchy thumper, mechanically simpler than a lawnmower, the Savage 650 is the answer. Who it's for? The rider who believes fewer parts equals fewer problems because they'd be right. Custom builders love this platform for the exact same reason cheap-to-own riders do. There's so little going on mechanically that there's almost nothing left to break when you start modifying it. The Savage 650 proved that a single cylinder and a belt drive can make a motorcycle almost impossibly cheap to run. The machine coming up proves the same thing with two cylinders and a shaft drive. Slightly more complex, but still so understressed at highway speed that the bearings and rings barely register the miles. Charging into number 4, Yamaha V-Star 650, 1998 to 2016. A masterclass in stripping the cruiser formula down to its bare essentials, and then having the discipline to leave it completely alone for nearly 2 decades. 649 cubic centimeters, air-cooled 70-degree V-twin. The enclosed shaft drive unit bolted to the rear wheel hub is the part pointer, perfectly isolating the drivetrain from rain, dirt, and corrosive road grime. It's a highly proven, low-compression, air-cooled V-twin that is basically unstressed at highway speed. It rolls on cheap, long-lasting bias-ply cruiser tires that push past 12,000 miles, compared to soft sport bike rubber that's toast in 4,000. Since it's shaft-driven, you never scrub chain wax off your rear wheel again. The dual Mikuni carburetors are mechanically linked and rarely fall out of sync, and the simple 2-valve heads use screw and nut adjusters. With a basic metric socket set, you can perform every service this bike will ever need in your own driveway. $100 a year, $2,500 to $4,000 used. For the budget-conscious cruiser fan who wants a massive-looking bike that runs on absolute pennies, the V-Star 650 delivers. Who it's for? The rider who wants a big cruiser looks on a small commuter budget. Yamaha sold enough of these that parts availability will likely outlive every rider currently shopping for one, which is a genuinely rare guarantee in the used market. The V-Star 650 earns its place by asking almost nothing and delivering everything a budget cruiser needs. The machine coming up earns its place through sheer mechanical honesty. So close at number 3, Moto Guzzi V7, 2008 to 2020. European bikes have a reputation for high maintenance bills, expensive parts, and mechanics who only speak in euros. Moto Guzzi built an entire motorcycle specifically to break that stereotype, on purpose, out of spite. 744 cubic centimeters air-cooled transverse V-twin. The exposed transverse cylinder head sticking straight out into the wind or the part pointer, you never remove the gas tank or any fairings to reach the valve train. Most modern bikes bury the valves under the seat, the tank in a maze of hoses. The V7 just doesn't. Unscrew 4 bolts, pop the valve cover off, and you have instant, totally unobstructed access to the screw and nut adjusters. A complete valve service takes under 20 minutes and costs $0 in parts. Air cooling means no water pump, no thermostat, no coolant flush ever. Power goes through a sealed shaft drive. Drain and refill 6 ounces of gear oil once a year for about $5. And you've eliminated the $150 cost of a worn chain and sprocket kit completely. $110 a year, $5,000 to $8,000 used. For the stylish rider who wants exotic Italian heritage without exotic Italian dealership invoices, the V7 is the loophole. Who it's for? The rider who wants Italian flair minus the Italian repair bills. Moto Guzzi has run this exact transverse V-twin architecture for decades, meaning independent mechanics everywhere already know exactly how to work on it without a specialty course. The Moto Guzzi V7 makes valve servicing almost embarrassingly easy. The machine coming up makes the entire mechanical relationship between owner and motorcycle almost embarrassingly easy, because Honda built it around half a car engine, and car engines were designed to be serviced by people who do not enjoy motorcycles. And up at number 2, Honda NC 700X 2012 to 2015. This is not really a motorcycle. It is an exercise in extreme mechanical pragmatism wearing motorcycle-shaped bodywork, and it very nearly stole the top spot on this list. 670 cubic centimeters liquid-cooled parallel twin. The forward slanted cylinder bank, laid forward at a massive 62 degrees, is the part pointer, giving you unobstructed access to the cylinder head the moment you pull the plastic bodywork off. Here's the wild part. Honda essentially took the 1.5-liter inline 4 engine from the Honda Fit car, sliced it straight down the middle, and dropped half of it into a motorcycle frame. Because it's derived from a car engine, it redlines at a shockingly low 6,500 RPM, drastically cutting frictional wear on the piston rings and bearings. And when you finally hit the 8,000-mile valve service, there's no removing camshafts or buying pricey metal shims, just a simple screw and nut adjuster. Slide a feeler gauge under the rocker arm, turn the threaded post until you feel a slight drag, lock the 10mm nut. The automotive-style spin-on oil filter costs $8 at any auto parts store, $120 a year, $3,500 to $5,000 used. For the daily commuter who treats maintenance as a chore, not a hobby, and wants automotive-grade reliability with 65 miles per gallon, the NC 700X has no equal. Who it's for? The rider who wants a car engine's manners and a motorcycle's body. There's even a storage compartment where a gas tank would normally sit, since the real tank hides under the seat. Proof that Honda designed this thing around the owner's actual life, not just the spec sheet. A car engine sawn in half is hard to beat. But number 1 isn't just hard to beat. Its valves adjust themselves 50 times a second, automatically, forever. And saving the absolute cheapest for number 1, Harley-Davidson Sportster, 883, 1986 to 2022. The undisputed king of American low-maintenance engineering, and honestly, it isn't close, which is exactly why it earned the very last spot on this entire countdown. 883 cubic centimeters air-cooled Evolution V-twin. The chrome pushrod tubes hiding the hydraulic valve lifters are the part pointer. A small check valve inside each lifter uses pressurized engine oil to constantly expand and take up any slack in the valve train. Dynamically adjusting valve lash 50 times a second while you ride. That means 0 valve maintenance for the entire life of the engine. Solid lifters suffer thermal expansion and mechanical wear, forcing owners to manually adjust them with feeler gauges so valves don't burn up. The Evolution engine just skips that entire category of problems. Combine that with a dry Kevlar drive belt that clears 50,000 miles without a single drop of messy chain lube, and your only real job for the life of this motorcycle is changing the oil. $100 a year, $4,000 to $6,500 used. For the American V twin rider who wants classic, rumbling soul without ever opening the top end of their engine, the Sportster 883 is the undefeated champion of this entire list. Who it's for? Literally anyone who wants a real motorcycle and hates surprise invoices. Nearly 40 years in production, millions sold, and an engine so proven that Harley barely touched the core architecture the entire time. That's not luck. That's a company that figured out the formula early and simply refused to mess with it. 20 motorcycles. 20 machines that prove you don't need a fat bank account to keep a bike running beautifully for decades. Hydraulic lifters, sealed chains, and bulletproof air cooling all say the same thing. Less complexity means less money leaving your wallet every single time. If you want to continue this ride with us, click the video on your screen. We will see you there.